Patricia Gannon, CEO and co-founder of Platforum. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. We got connected. Don't really know how, but once we spoke, I was really interested in the platform that you've built, legal tech community platform. It's all based on voice in the legal sector, which I already think is controversial in a world that's on PDFs and language and written that we're doing. That you're building this really exciting platform for lawyers in the legal tech space. So you're a long-time operator, Patricia, turned tech founder, advisor to many law firms. You've been in this game a long time, so I can't wait to kind of cover your journey. So I guess with that, do you want to give the listeners that don't know who you are a little bit of a soup to nuts of who Patricia is, your career, and where you are now?
Well, thanks a lot for having me. Really exciting. I mean, the story is, it's one of those, been an unusual journey. I come from a village in the west of Ireland. I studied law in Trinity College in Dublin. Even when I was studying law, I always felt that I was going to have an international career. I was blessed with having some wonderful sort of mentors and leaders in law to look up to, including women in law, including Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese, both of whom became Irish presidents. I was always impressed by the fact that the legal sector is changing constantly. I ended up in the European Commission in Brussels, and then I ended up at a multidisciplinary law firm in Munich, in Germany. I just always wanted an international career. I loved the comparative elements of law. I loved the fact that it was different in multiple jurisdictions. And our role as lawyers was to try and find the best way kind of to protect our clients, irrespective of where they're doing business.
Nice.
Then
Nice.
I mean, then so that was just stage one, phase one. Then, I ended up in the Balkans where, wrong time, wrong place, very much, living in Serbia under Milosevic, turned into right time, right place, as there were huge opportunities in that post-war, post-communist transition economy, to build a law firm. And all of the foreign direct investment that was coming into those jurisdictions was huge. And this was a really exciting time, the birth of new states. It doesn't happen very often, and I was sort of living it in real time on the ground. Seeing investors coming in. Yeah, it was looking back on it historically. It was a precious time because everything was happening. It was building a country. The early days of a new legal regime, of new investors, of an excitement about something new. Yeah, it was interesting.
And you must have been quite pivotal at that part of, I guess, building that VC or PE mentality in the Balkans.
Yeah. Yes. And I guess looking back on it now, I probably was always an entrepreneur. I didn't realize it so much. You just do the job, roll up your sleeves in the good sort of West of Ireland tradition, just get on with it. There's work to be done, roll up your sleeves and get it done. And I guess
That's
that
it.
that can do sort of mentality is something that sort of even to this day I still have. Those early days, though, it was exciting. It was about putting the country on the map, starting with Serbia, and then we built out the whole region. And then sort of looking at opportunities for investors, for strategic investors acquiring either companies in privatization or for companies building infrastructure. And I mean, it was just exciting times. So did that for many, many years, and sort of exited that sort of maybe 4 years ago. Just in time for COVID, obviously, and sort of lockdown like all the rest of us. So it was a time for reflection, a time of my career when it was like, okay, so what am I going to do now? And I just had seen throughout my entire legal career the challenges that particularly I think young lawyers face when faced with the idea of building their own career, building their book of business, internationalizing their practice, learning best practice, what's really going on. And because of the hierarchical nature in legal per se, sometimes they just don't get access. There's an inner circle, quite often just the partners who understand what's going on, and everyone else is sort of left out of it. And I just felt there's got to be a way to democratize access to content that makes me a better lawyer, a more engaged lawyer, and a lawyer that can build my own little book of business, because ultimately that's what lawyers and law firms in particular do. And then for in-house, again, it's about using resources as efficiently as you can, being directly relevant to the management of your company, and doing it very efficiently, because people don't have, they don't have the money.
And I think that's a great kind of segment into Platform 9 and what it is and why, because it feels like you are bridging the legal gap between the older generation, the younger generation. What do the younger generation want? They want access to, yeah, short form video. They want access to voice related video content, not sitting and reading documents about how to network, or how to grow your book of business or whatever it may be. So clearly that inspired you, seeing these gaps in the younger generation coming up, going from leading one of the largest law firms in the Balkans to now building, as I said earlier, a voice-powered legal tech platform and
I
Platform
like,
Nine.
I
So
like
why
it.
don't you?
I like
Why?
this, the voice powered bit. I like, yeah.
It is. Well, that's the way. As somebody that's I just logged on to the app. Everyone listening about 2 hours ago. Patricia and I met about 4 weeks ago, and I was able to jump into a session today. It was really all about emotional resilience and psychological safety, and anyone could just jump in and say hello and ask questions, and it's really interactive, and there's sessions on every other day of the week. So, yeah, like, what was the? Do you think it's a little bit controversial trying to get, I guess, lawyers, or not controversial? That's the wrong way to ask it. I
Called
think I think
challenging.
I think I think the why voice, I guess. Why did you bet on a voice or video powered platform in an industry obsessed with written words and PDFs?
Exactly. I think it had to be different. Voice is the way in which we build connections. We listen to people. So I realized myself during COVID, I was heavily involved in the International Bar Association. And luckily that organization, which depended on live conferences for the networking, right? And it was well prepared and built out a series of webinars. Now, all of a sudden, like everybody else, I was stuck behind a screen, and watching people talking about either an area of law, or quite often just how they were feeling, right? We were all in lockdown or whatever. Very quickly, I mean, the first couple of weeks, you're sort of looking at what every lawyer looks like out of a suit. Everyone is at home, we're all wearing our jumpers and our sweaters and our t-shirts, right? And then looking at what kind of pictures they have on their wall and what kind of plants they have. So the first week or two was the curiosity element of seeing where people live, what their homes look like. And then quickly I noticed people started turning off the screens. And I realized, actually, well, they had other things to do. So then we realized very early on that people wanted to multitask. They wanted to do different things. So building a tool which allowed people, lawyers in particular, to interact with each other, without actually having to be fully committed, like talk radio used to be. People could ask questions, they could call in if they wanted to, build relationships through listening and through learning. And that's why we built it. So we've just launched, we've just completed like our beta series. We've got about 10 law firms from all over Europe who are currently trialing, including Dentons, which is the largest law firm in Europe, in the world, actually. And
Nice.
now we're looking at scaling. So we're welcoming people like yourselves who joined today, and we're doing different sessions. They're live interactive sessions. And yeah, so we're looking forward to having more people join us.
And now that you've engaged with a number of law firms, you mentioned Dentons, which is, of course, a huge firm globally. How are you seeing lawyers currently engaging with the app, and what has surprised you most about the behavior?
That's a very good question. Actually, I was convinced that the masses would come immediately. I
Okay.
should have realized that lawyers, being lawyers, it's a conservative industry, not going to adapt quickly. And there's a mild skepticism about anything new. And I think this has validated to me more than anything is that these lawyers are so busy. just being able to schedule a session in the middle of the day. When you go onto the app, you can save the session into your Outlook, so you have a reminder that comes up 15 minutes before. But ultimately, you can save it. Most of them are, scheduling, quite often not attending live, but because of that, we have live, we have recorded, and then we transcribe voice to text, and then we summarize it using AI, which means that you have different experiences depending on what your time and availability is. So quite often, if you want to get access to the community or the person, like we've really discovered that, it's very, very difficult getting access to leadership or to top names in legal and legal tech. Being in the same session as somebody that you want to get access to is a good way of interacting with them or getting a direct answer to a direct question. Quite often that access isn't there. If you are busy and you want to catch up at the weekend, there's a particular topic or person that you want to listen to, you can do that. Obviously, it's all on the app. And then the summaries I just love the summaries because, we have wonderful one pagers with, key talking points, key takeaways, key tips to implement in your work on Monday. And that's the way I wanted it to be, in the sense that, it's got to be practical. People don't have time, there's too many words. So I guess you asked me about my biggest surprise is definitely I hadn't realized that lawyers are quite as busy as they are, how little control they have over their daily outlooks, to be honest.
Mhm.
But they are listening quite often later. So we're now sort of doing large campaigns looking at students. We're doing a legal career week at the end of April, where we are looking at attracting all of the younger lawyers and students who are looking for training contracts, who are trying to get a job, trying to get a position, learning how to get access to the law firms, learning to see what's the difference between the different law firms, how do they hire, how do they recruit, what they can expect from their life in law. Yeah, a lot of stuff coming up now in the next couple of months.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome, and I think it definitely appeals to the next generation of lawyers coming through, and someone like yourself, which is why I was really keen to have the conversation today. As I say, you've wore just about every hat in the legal world, from
Hey,
founding.
don't make me seem so old. No, but I've
No,
done
no.
multiple things. I've done a lot of
You
different
don't
things.
no, you have. You've done it from founding one of the largest full service law firms to sitting on boards to now building a community that's based on voice and video technology. I think it's great, but we talk about this a lot on the show. Really, when we talk about built for lawyers by lawyers, when we talk about legal tech and how younger lawyers are embracing the tech versus the older generation. But I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think the question that a lot of the younger generation, when I speak to young budding lawyers that are in their training contracts or have just completed their training contracts, they ask me often, because I build tech teams for tech companies, like, and these are often legal tech, so I'm hiring not just tech people, but I'm hiring in general in counsels. And I'm constantly asked, what do you think we should be doing to get ahead of it? Is us using more and more AI? Is it deepening our level of understanding, or is it just quickening our output, but it's actually making us more shallow in terms of, because lawyers back in the day, they would work late hours, they would read way more than what you need to do as of the last 12 months. So, like, what do you think the younger generation of lawyers really need to be doing to stand out?
Well, it's interesting and a good one. I've spoken to a large number of younger lawyers. I've spoken to lawyers and if interviewed every stage of the career, because really it wasn't sure exactly what's the product market fit here. And with younger lawyers, there's clearly a concern about the level of training they're going to get.
Okay.
As part of the COVID sort of post-COVID sort of environment, younger lawyers are getting less direct access to mentors. We are traditionally known as an apprenticeship model. There's now real concern that they're not getting the same sort of feedback on documents or on their experience, to be properly trained, and that's a real concern. Clearly, we can't avoid mentioning AI and the role that technology is going to play adjacent to the human lawyer. That's a real concern for a lot of younger lawyers. Getting training contracts, particularly also here in the UK, is a really challenging and competitive process. So brilliant young people. And my heart goes out to them because they've worked so hard, and they're brilliant, absolutely sharp and interactive and proactive and technically savvy and all of that. And they're finding it really challenging getting a training contract. The only thing I would say to them is that legal is so much broader than it was in my generation. For us, it was in a way quite easy. It was, in that there weren't that many options. Yes, it was a competitive process to get your training contract, but ultimately the career path was relatively straightforward. Now you have a whole myriad of new jobs that are available in legal that didn't exist before. So I think having an open mindset as a young lawyer, understanding systemically like what you're good at and what you enjoy, like look at decipher, decode the job, and understand there are different aspects of legal, understand the parts that you're good at, and really focus on that and hone down on that skill set and upgrade it with technology that will help your productivity. You're still going to have to make decisions, you're still going to have to advise, and quite often, this was something that one of the law firms said to me, like, we're a little concerned because, young lawyers don't like picking up the phone, for example. They don't feel comfortable speaking to. They feel that it's necessary to schedule a call in advance and to understand the questions in advance. Like in my generation, it was about the ability to absorb vast amounts of information, decipher what was relevant from what was irrelevant, and the ability to come up with an intelligent response or answer, even if it was, I don't have the answer to that particular question at the moment, but I know how to find it. This is that's confident. That's the proper trustworthy advisor that you want on your case. Somebody who's not going to blow you away with something that's maybe incorrect. These are skills, this ability to adapt to the environment around you. This is the world we live in. I mean, we've got to be able to adapt to it. It's changing constantly. And your role as a young lawyer and as an advisor is to be able to, take all of the information that you have and be able to persuasively talk to your client about what matters to them.
But when as a young lawyer do you think, are we're not creating by any means lazy lawyers or less efficient by ChatGPT, but what are you seeing at the moment with all the law firms that you've spoken with over the past couple of years and advised on legal tech? What are you, especially in the last 6, 12 months, how are you seeing a kind of pattern, the way that like good use cases of how people are using ChatGPT? Because we saw that famous case in, I don't know, I think it was America, and somebody was in a courtroom and they just
So,
cited it. They just cited a case that was just completely not true. So as a
yeah.
young law, as an older lawyer, you're probably going to go, I've never heard of that case, so I'm going to double check that. As a younger lawyer that's trying to respond to the quickest Slack, respond to the email quickest, respond to the partner's proposal as quickly as possible to help them out, and how are you seeing ChatGPT or LLMs being used in a really proactive, efficient, unbiased, and regulated way?
Interesting. I mean, good point. And I think this is, it really sort of it depends in a way. We did a really good session last week with a Swedish lawyer from DLA, Malin was, and she did a debate with a juristic, a founder of a legal tech company. They actually did, we did our first debate on Platform9 last Wednesday, and this was exactly the point. Does AI make lawyers lazy? So what does this mean in terms of, and it was an interesting, because there was a concern that once we give up this cognitive part of our work, this real brain power, and we look at the productivity and we look at database and we look at, search engines and all of that, and then the whole language model and the draft, are we losing something? And if we are losing something, what are we replacing it with? So on the law firm side, we certainly look at the productivity hack, which is there. There are multiple use cases which are practical. And in fact, no lawyer or even legal team of large numbers could carry out this work as efficiently and accurately as large language models do. What does that mean for the young lawyer, for the training contract, for the skills, the ability to, again, as we did historically, go through vast amounts of due diligence material and be able to decipher what was relevant, what was a risk and what wasn't, what was to be included in the report. And at the end, I think there's a real concern there that younger lawyers miss out on that ability to discern what's relevant and what's not relevant. Now, I think we can teach all of these things, and there are wonderful use cases out there. Many firms are quietly cautious, which is what they should be. Again, we seen them being sued yet for negligence for wholly relying on, but it's bound to come. The idea of sort of prohibiting large language models per se, I think, is something that's going to prove, possibly today it might be an appropriate decision, but it certainly won't be for much longer. And firms that do will possibly be left behind as a result of that. But I think having policies in place, fully training people, embracing and training, but actually having a policy which says, check the case law. I mean, the hallucinations are still there, apparently not as bad as before, but I think this idea of go back and check, double check, we've got to continue to do that. So there'd be slightly different prompting and drafting skills for sure. But I think this is a human-led business. I think it remain a human-led business. Ideally, lawyer 2.0 is what we're looking at. And that means a more effective, more efficient lawyer who fundamentally focuses on what I believe they should always be focusing on, which is, interacting and serving the client in the best possible way. And quite often, and lawyers don't do it enough, we don't, I've often said, we're advising in a vacuum. We don't fundamentally understand exactly where the client is sitting, either within their industry or, how the decision-making process and the politics of running a business is there. I think we can spend a lot more time in order to become the real trusted advisor and add value. We can spend that time that we've saved with our, large language models and our AI on genuinely providing a better service to our clients.
Yeah, that takes me, I'm just as you're saying that, I'm then thinking, well, that's lawyer 2.0. I'm here for that. I think every law firm like yourself and like most that are evangelists and supporters of tech coming into industries and adoption, like you're right, some are still prohibiting, but at some point, very, very in the near future, every law firm probably should and they will be using LLMs and ChatGPT, etc. But it brings me on to the next point. There's this idea floating around of the billable hour being outdated. That the emperor has no billables, as I'll call it. Like the emperor has no clothes, or the emperor has no tech. Right now, is the emperor naked? Is what I want to know.
And
So,
this
like,
argument around.
basically, when I say that, it means that as lawyer 1.0 says to lawyer 2.0, go and do this, and I want you to add as much value to this task and do it to the best of your ability as possible. Okay, but we're not on value-based pricing yet. We're still on billable hours, and let's be honest, like the pretending revolution is not happening. Everyone is still doing billable hours. So what do you think about that topic?
That's
And
interesting.
do you think there's a solution to it?
Yeah. Well, as somebody who, built a successful law firm on billable hours, I've always felt there was a tension between, the need for the lawyers to chunk on the hours and the client's need to have the work done as efficiently as possible. So there's always been an inherent tension there. It's just, I think we haven't found a better way to define value. And it is so therefore not only, I mean, I've had clients also say, listen, at least we can attach we can attach the value to this time and we understand that cost of that time, right? So that gives me something that it's not how long is a piece of string here, um until we find a better way, and whether it's product led, you know, possibly with AI, we can have a due diligence process carried out for a fixed fee, and then sort of work things around that. But I think there will be AI tech-led solutions and human-led solutions, and the future will be a hybrid of both. Because let's face it, the tech costs money too, and maintenance, and it may be super efficient, but I think we need to pass the efficiency on to clients, but we also need to ensure that as a firm we retain the profitability. So yeah, I mean, I don't believe there'll be a revolution here. I think there'll be an evolution, but again, because as an industry wide, because the billable hour is something that is so entrenched, and the decision makers, obviously at the top of the hierarchy, see it as a very effective. I mean, legal is booming all across the world. It's booming. It's been booming since COVID. So this is an industry. This is a seriously effective industry in terms of the fee generating, and again, we'll see how there are those who advocate for removing the lawyers entirely from the picture by using technology. I think that's
I mean,
short-sighted.
that's just silly. It's a cerebral profession.
Maybe parts of it that are not less cerebral, and we can certainly
Yeah, of
out.
course, sure.
So, I think we need to be realistic here. There will be new ways of doing things, and there will be as a period of adaptation. Adapt or die, and I think it's as direct as that. It'll be. It's always been the case. We didn't have word processors 30 years ago. I had a secretary,
Mm.
I had a dictaphone, like all of it. I'm the generation that started off with a secretary. Well,
You had a BlackBerry.
we had no, yes, exactly. Okay, I'm really aging myself here, but we also,
I had one too. It's fine.
in the very beginning, we also had the dictaphone, and the shared secretary. The trainees were the bottom of the pile. The partner work got
Yeah.
done first. And we had a dictaphone. We dictated our markups, and it's just when I think back on it, so like it has changed significantly. That was like, okay, say 30 years ago. In 30 years from now, will I be thinking things, and will I be, will I have a neural link in my brain which will, which will be dictating what I'm thinking, and that will and somebody on the other side will be, doing the same. And it's very possible. Everything is possible. It's just remarkable. I mean, this is a remarkable time to be at, I would say, the beginning of the end of the traditional legal service. It's the beginning of the end of the traditional way. There's a new way coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Because it is so hard to just on the spot tell me or the listeners a solution. Like for someone that looks at it from the outside in, that I offer an executive search service, so it's very similar in terms of how we bill. But you're paying for my time. You're not paying for the outcome to get the candidate. You're paying for the time spent on the search, which typically will take me 6 to 8 weeks. So, but now my whole firm, I launched my own recruitment business 12 months ago, in tandem with this podcast. And now we're totally powered with Gen AI. So the things that used to take me 8 weeks now take me 4 weeks. So I can't charge the same. I don't feel like I can. I mean, lots
Well,
of people will.
have you actually tested it on your
Yeah,
clients?
yeah, I have.
Okay.
Now I do a flat fee or a subscription. I do a flat fee. I give you unlimited hires for this price. And when we say unlimited, it's like, don't take the piss. But, you know, over the next 3 months, throw me what you've got and let's pay a subscription-based fee, because you paying $100,000 for a placement now, it doesn't make any sense because I'm not spending the same amount of time on it. And the same should be the case for the lawyers, I think. It's now not about the law firm.
Yeah.
And I feel like it still is a lot about the law firm.
Again, it's hierarchy, and it's, again, it's status, it's comfort, it's fear of, again, choosing. It's really when you're doing large transactions or large, uh, averse work, you really need to ensure you have the right people, and you need to justify to your boss and the corporates. If you're in-house, you've got to ensure you've got the right legal team with you. You get to do this once. People don't really want to see it messed up, and the stakes are too high. So I think it's really important to have this, no more than, product market fit. What we're doing now is we're trying to, make sure we have a product for which there is a market, and that's startup speak. Law firms could well do the same thing. You are not every lawyer suits every client. It's just a question of finding the right ones, and then ensuring that you deliver the right product on the, at the right time, for the right fees, and it sounds very simple, and people have written, books on this, and it does boil down to that. And there's certainly a sophistication to it, of course, but, I think technology will allow us to, and particularly for younger lawyers who will and are more technically open and more savvy in doing so, if they have an environment within which they can prove themselves. Going back to that debate we had last week, they're not lazier. They're definitely not lazier. They're just different. And we, as legal organizations, we need to work with different people. And that's the whole point, is that, it is wonderful. It is a joy to behold when you have a team of different generations, everybody contributing in their own way. The end result for the client is exactly what the client needs. They need the wisdom, they need the judgment, they need the human skills, the social skills, the listening skills, together with the product, which is the advice or the document, or the volume based result based on using a Gen AI tool. So it can be very different. All I'm saying is that we need a more agile and open mindset, and the reason we built this app is to facilitate and support people who do have an agile and open mindset and who love a chunky conversation. That's what we're doing. Chunky conversations.
And I think I think it also for the law firms that are maybe small to medium sized, because I think what we're seeing in certainly the last 6 months, I mean, the amount of people or law firms that seem to have signed up with Leia, Legora, have you seen?
Yes. Yeah, like, or
They just went through the rebranding, and
yes.
like so many law firms seem to be signing up to that now. Like we're seeing the change happen from these global, like Dentons, for example, and that's where it should start. But for the kind of small to medium firms, how do you think that? How important do you think that change management piece is? Because they
Yeah.
just, I think
Yeah.
it's huge. Yeah.
Huge. It is huge, and at the moment, it's fear based. I think fear
But you're
based.
but you're but you're creating that, you're for those small to medium firms that don't have that safe space for psychological safety to speak up on, you're creating that through platform, it feels like.
Correct, exactly. Built it for the little guys. The big guys already have the infrastructure. Very happy to have the big guys too, because they have the intel, they have the
Yeah.
capacity to deliver and to participate. But ultimately, smaller firms are struggling because they don't know how to make an informed decision, and so that's why having a community that may have made that decision or made the wrong decision or have tips and tricks on how to make a decision. All of this is something that we look forward to sharing.
And I guess now, looking at where the platform is now, what's the goal for
Yeah.
2025? Like, where do you want to be by the
Well,
end of this year?
yeah, no, it's super exciting. We've just gone live. Essentially, we closed our beta in January, so we've just sort of gone live. So we're baby step, baby step. We're 350 people on the app right now, different stages, different countries, different, it's certainly a pan-European predominantly, but now we're scaling more internationally. Our aim, we're going to do a really important student legal career week, end of April. So that's sort of our biggest campaign in this sort of first half of the year. Opening up in other markets, building forums. Up until now, we've done individual sessions that are about 35, 40 minutes long. That I call it microdosing or content snacking, which is a new word I love. So we're literally looking at micro moments that lawyers can fit into their day on a particularly bespoke topic, anything from AI or peak performance in law or legal careers, and now we're building out forums, which was the whole idea. It's called Platforum9 for a reason. It's a platform made of forums, and those forums are the communities of lawyers that gather weekly, bi-weekly around the practice area or topic that matters to them. So we're setting up at the moment international arbitration, M&A, law firm management, coaching in law, lots of stuff that is quite different. And right now, I think once we start those, it means I don't have to co-moderate all of them. Up until now, I've co-moderated probably about 100 plus live sessions. And I've done that. I didn't think I'd have to, but actually, in the beginning, you have to, get it off the ground, and that's fine. That's normal as part of the startup founder journey, which is fine. But I look forward to the days, and we're starting to see them where, I'm just sitting in the audience and the moderators are managing the content themselves. So that's an exciting part ahead. So this has got a scale. It's going to be useful. And the session summaries, as I said, are still great. Check out the website, www.platforum9.com. Come and download the app. It's free still. Ultimately, it'll be a subscription-based model, but for everybody joining now, it's still free. So welcome aboard. We'd love to have you come to as many live sessions as you want. You get access to people. You can connect with everybody we have on the app. You can build your own new little network.
Awesome. And I have this discussion a lot with candidates, whether they're lawyers, whether they're CTOs, because I build teams for legal tech, so the functions can be quite different. But the same question arises from every person, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an HR, whether you're finance, or whether you're tech, in a legal tech, and they say, Gavin, you're building a really good brand, love your podcast, etc., etc. How do I do that? Like, when you talk about the community platform, like, do you see this as a platform that's becoming or will become more of a platform for, yeah, like legal creators, influencers that are practicing lawyers,
Yes.
or is it a more of a behind the scenes, like this is what people, or is it a bit of both? I don't know.
A bit of both. I mean, originally the 9 of the platform 9 are 9 sort of global universal topics, right? Health, tech, trade, deals, energy, property, infrastructure, resources, and rights. So no matter where you are in the world, there's something that can fit into that area, whether it's tech in the UK or it's resort minerals, mining in South America, whatever, it's broad enough to allow people. So we felt that it was important that there was a bespoke community, because what we learned from LinkedIn is a huge organization, a huge platform. Only 3% of the people on LinkedIn produce content, right? There's 1 billion people on LinkedIn, right? Huge, absolutely huge. I mean, like something like 30 million lawyers, lots of people, okay? Content, the challenge with it is, you got to go scroll, 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 scroll. With us, the idea was you opt in to what you're interested in. So it's not all things to all people. It is a very curated content for a curated community. And I think that's the key thing. So we can have open forums and closed forums. So if you want to build your own network in a closed forum where you invite your own people and you use our medium to do that, you're free to do that as well. That's proving interesting with networks. A lot of networks are looking at creating a better way to particularly engage younger lawyers in those networks or associations, where they feel, again, it's their space. They can ask questions of each other all of the time. It's a live flow, but nobody sees it. That's another option. So for now, my dream was really to build a place where young lawyers would feel welcome, where no question is too stupid, where they get access to people, mentors or support, and they get content that keeps them sharp and savvy. I think we've got to be sharp and savvy, and this is hopefully the place to do it.
Love it. I love it. It's a great idea, considering where the intersection of where we are and just in every industry, but certainly law. And having used it myself today, I can honestly say, not just because we're doing this conversation, like I'll probably be on it most days, because it just really cuts through the noise on a very, very busy platform that is LinkedIn. And the amount of irrelevance that you get on LinkedIn to what you want to read, having something like this, it's great, and it's definitely something that's
That was the aim. Listen, thanks a lot. That
yeah,
was the aim, and look forward to seeing people on it. And thank you for having me here today, telling the story. And yeah, we'll see where it goes.
awesome. Patricia, thanks so much for coming on, and yeah, we'll be watching this space as you guys continue to grow.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Bye bye.